My friends, pay close attention to what we're about to discover here now. The screeching sound of metal being cut, sparks flying in the defense industrial complexes, and the thick smell of burnt oil don't just signal the construction of a new vehicle. They signal the issuance of an irrevocable military death certificate. The legendary M2 Bradley, the hero forged in steel and rivets that dominated the Desert Storm and spilled its own hydraulic fluid on the muddy plains of Ukraine, is officially dead. And its replacement is not just a software update or an armor swap. What the Pentagon is rolling out now, under the banner of a massive $45 billion program, is a definitive break in the history of ground warfare. And today you will understand, in the smallest technical and strategic details, why the revolutionary XM30 is not just an infantry fighting vehicle. It is, in fact, a 5th-generation F-35 fighter operating on tracks. The United States Army has spent the last few years watching in silence, and they have learned brutal lessons, written in blood and fire, analyzing the systematic destruction of Russian and Western armored vehicles in Eastern Europe between 2024 and 2025. Including the XM30, which is already undergoing a sort of dress rehearsal in the shadows. The Lynx model, which shares the same design DNA, is scheduled to enter the Ukrainian theater of operations in early 2026. It's a lethal testing ground under real combat conditions. The conclusion in Washington was cold and unanimous. The welded steel from the 1980s, no matter how many reactive plates you bolt on top, has become an obsolete target for swarms of drones and guided missiles. What worked for the last 40 years simply won't win the next war. And the American answer is the XM30, the silent predator. And to understand the true mechanical hatred this vehicle brings to the battlefield, we need to break down the anatomy of the beast. Now subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and like the video, because it takes a lot of work to make. And it all starts with the absolute lethality of its main weapon. The unmanned turret of the XM30 features the XM913 automatic cannon, which is almost comically large for its category. The caliber? 50 millimeters. To put this into a bar analogy, the new 50mm cannon is to the old 25mm cannon on the Bradley, as a lethal 50 caliber sniper rifle is. It is to a pellet gun at an amusement park. And this is where the intimidating specifications come in. Even though it fires an absurdly larger shell, the barrel length is about 2.97 meters, just a few centimeters longer than the old cannon, keeping the vehicle's profile incredibly slim. The entire gun assembly weighs 217 kilos, but when the gunner pulls the trigger, physical fury is unleashed. The cannon erupts, generating a brutal recoil force of almost 11 tons, about 10,000 kilos, directly into the chassis. You feel the tremor deep in your soul, and the lead travels at over 1,000 meters per second, ripping through the air toward the target. But let's put this into tactical terms. This advanced round contains no less than 8 times the internal volume of the old 25mm projectile. The military math of 8 times more volume results in an absurdly larger pressure chamber. Pressure, in Army jargon, means speed and extreme lethality. This means that the XM30 not only pierces enemy infantry armor, it disintegrates it through sheer hydraulic pressure and kinetic energy. Look at the cold numbers of ballistic physics. The old M2 Bradley could, with great effort, pierce about 95 millimeters of rolled homogeneous steel. The new XM30 armor-piercing ammunition tears through between 120 and 160 millimeters of hardened steel. Forgive me, because showing the millimeters with my hand here is a bit difficult. Grab a ruler if you have any doubts. Now, if we attach the future depleted uranium or tungsten darts, the devastation increases. Of course, a mechanized infantry veteran will tell you that this still doesn't penetrate the frontal plate of a heavy battle tank like the Russian T-90. But hold on. And the angle changes everything. A projectile hitting at 90 degrees goes through 100 millimeters of steel. But if the enemy armor is sloped at 40 degrees, the cannon has to cut through twice as much material. The side of the Russian tank chassis has armor equivalent to between 150 and 200 millimeters. Therefore, the doctrine dictates that the 50mm cannon is not meant to destroy the main chassis of the tank, but rather to instantly tear apart the optics, the radars, rip off the explosive reactive armor, and smash the tracks, causing what we call a mobility kill. However, this monstrous ammunition brought a logistical nightmare that the infantry hates. Bigger rounds take up more space. In the Bradley, the troops would go to war with 300 rounds ready to fire and another 600 stored on the floor of the vehicle, totaling 900 shells. In the XM30, due to the sheer size of the rounds, it is estimated that the crew has only about 200 rounds ready and 300 in storage, 500 in total. The infantryman who needs to lay down suppressive fire gets desperate because of this, which is very similar to the debate about the new 6.8mm NGSW rifle, but on an armored vehicle scale. How did the Pentagon get around this ammunition limitation, you may be asking right now? With technology and artificial intelligence applied to fire control. First, the effective engagement range has doubled. The cannon hits point targets between 3,000 and 4,000 meters away, 3 to 4 kilometers. The attached computer allows the shooter to choose the rate of fire, varying between 100 and 200 rounds per minute to save ammunition. But the real magic happens inside the chamber. The cannon uses a dual-feed ammunition system, operating almost like a scene from the movie Matrix. The gunner sees the T-90 and the trench beside it. With a simple press of a button, he switches from armor-piercing ammunition to the new and lethal XM1204 Smart Fuse explosive round. This ingenious shell can be programmed milliseconds before leaving the barrel. It can detonate on impact, detonate with a delay, going through a wall before exploding inside the room. Or the most frightening, the airburst explosion. The shooter uses the laser rangefinder to measure the distance to the enemy trench at exactly 622 meters. He fires a short burst and the computer calibrates the air fuse, and the rounds explode exactly above the Russians' heads, raining shrapnel down from above. Yeah, my friends, it's the end of the line. But shooting high, far, and smart doesn't mean anything if you don't spot the enemy first. This is where the electronic brain of the XM30 comes in. If you look at the project blueprints, the XM30 is less of an assault vehicle and much more of a colossal data-gathering sensor with cannons attached to it. That's why we call it the F-35 on tracks. The turret roof is lined with GPS antennas, satellite communications, hostile radar detectors, and laser beam warning receivers. It works like a live antenna in electronic warfare. The big tactical leap is its ability to network with the Leuchten Coyote drone. The vehicle launches the drone, which flies over the theater of operations for up to 2 continuous hours, opening up an insane 60-kilometer search radius. The aerial scout scans the map looking for enemy heat signatures. The information gathered in the air comes back not as raw video that would stress the soldier. They feed directly into the XM30's artificial intelligence software. And make no mistake, the American military is not messing around with science fiction. They confirm that they used Elon Musk's Grok artificial intelligence super algorithm to destroy more than 2,000 tactical targets during the war in Iran. The XM30's software takes the drone's video and merges it with the new generation of thermal cameras, which are located right there on the turret, creating a combined image of the battlefield, incredibly sharp with twice the range of the Bradley's vision. The commander is able to positively identify a T-90 tank hidden in the tree line from an incredible 20 kilometers away, before the Russian armored vehicle even knows the war has started. It's the hive mind concept. What the platoon vehicle sees, all the others see simultaneously. And if the mechanized infantry soldier complains about too many screens and too much artificial intelligence, the soldier will have a mental breakdown in the middle of crossfire. The army responded to this by reducing the main crew to just 2 focused men. The turret does the hard work. The computer calculates distance, wind, angle, and target speed before the gunner even touches the trigger. They've almost taken the fun out of manual combat. But what happens when American infantry encounters a superior force of enemy tanks? The 50mm cannon takes a back seat, and the XM shows its second ace up its sleeve: the multi-mission missile launcher. The old Tau launcher on the Bradley required the crew to open the turret under fire and reassemble systems if they wanted to switch weapons. The new XM30 uses a modular open systems approach. Now you have a quiver of capabilities. The same hidden launcher on the roof can fire the Tau missile, the Coyote Block 3 kamikaze drone, or the lethal FGM-148 Javelin. The new generation of the Javelin has an extended range of 4.5 kilometers. The missile is fired into the sky and dives in a top attack profile, penetrating the thin roof of the T-90's turret, with a tandem warhead bypassing the Russian reactive armor and creating a gigantic fireball. And as reinforcements, the rear door of the vehicle opens and 6 mechanized infantry soldiers disembark, armed to the teeth, carrying more Javelin missiles and Carl Gustav recoilless rifles to finish off what's left. And faced with all this onboard technology, the enemy's paralysis is absolute. And we also need to understand the broader political scenario in which this is taking place. That's why I want you to pay close attention now. I'm running for the iBest award in the political influencer category. The global establishment tries to silence those who analyze the game according to the real rules. And I want to show the system the undeniable strength of our elite analysis community. I'm asking for your vote now. It's quick, 30 seconds. The link is in the description and in the first pinned comment. Go there, cast your vote, and prove the strength of our community. That in Brazil, it's not just about dancing. It's not just about funny videos. There really is a huge community that cares about what really happens in the world. So everyone, from 40th place, we're already in the top 10. I'm counting on your vote now. Thank you very much. Now, going back to the anatomy of vehicle survival. The mentality of the last century operated on a suicidal logic that, in practice, created an armored coffin. The 25mm cannon ammunition was stored inside the compartment, right next to the soldiers' bodies, ready to explode and incinerate everyone if the chassis was penetrated. The XM30 reversed the architecture and created the inverted armored coffin, the key to American survivability. The giant turret on top, filled with missiles and bullets, is completely unmanned. The 2 operators no longer sit up there. They were moved to the deep interior of the tank's hull, accommodated in a heavily armored survival cell. If the vehicle takes a direct hit and the turret explodes catastrophically, the soldiers inside the capsule survive. And in the modern American doctrine of Cold War 2.0, multi-million-dollar equipment that is destroyed is replaced with a logistical stroke of the pen. A battle-hardened veteran with years of training is priceless. Traditional armor that welded aluminum which melted in Ukraine is gone. The Army used 3-dimensional additive manufacturing software and colossal databases to map shockwaves on the hull before cutting the first piece of steel. They chose Integrity's composites, masters of armor. Forget pure steel. The XM30 wears modular packages of boron carbide, silicon carbide, and ultra-light aluminum alloys. The concept is clear. The first layer shatters or deflects the enemy projectile. The second absorbs the impact, and the inner linings prevent fragments from ricocheting inside the crew cabin. A general feature is geographic modularity. If the war is in Western Europe fighting against Russian armor, the XM30 uses its heavy 55-ton version. If the conflict breaks out in the jungles or islands of the Pacific against Chinese machinery, the heavy armor is removed at the base, and it travels in a stripped-down and extremely agile version. Besides steel and carbide, modern survivability depends on the APS active protection system. These radars trigger countermeasures and intercept anti-tank missiles flying through the air before they touch American metal. The track record of this system is flawless against missiles. However, engineers are still struggling to calibrate this protection network against the new and troublesome threat of swarms of first-person view suicide drones, the infamous FPVs. And to complete the perfect project, escape and the fear of being detected seal the deal. The Night Hunter can't make any noise. Trying not to emit strong thermal signatures in a field full of Russian sensors, the XM30 uses the so-called ghost mode. Through an audacious design, the new Elysium and Ellison-Eggenforce transmission turns the armored vehicle into a hybrid electric propulsion vehicle. During an advance into enemy territory or when it is under attack, the vehicle shuts off its hot and noisy diesel engine. It operates silently using electric batteries, reaching speeds of up to 70 km/h without emitting the traditional roar of a combustion engine. It is not invisible to the naked eye, but for Russian electromagnetic and infrared signature management, the XM30 is practically a thermal black hole sliding between the front lines. The cost to produce these technological marvels is exactly $45 billion. And that's where things get more complicated. While many analysts question whether this amount is a waste in the face of cheap Soviet weapons and Russian plastic drones that fill the skies of Ukraine, the Pentagon's response is emphatic. Investing in electronic dominance is the only way for the troops of the future to survive. The army that wins won't be the one with the thickest armor, but the one with the sharpest mind. And to prove who among our elite has really followed and dissected this complete tactical analysis up to this point, go down to the comments section right now. Our engagement keyword, your official verdict on Russian obsolescence and the new era of mechanized information warfare, is the phrase digital predator. Yes, my friends, type that in the comments now to mark your position and show your knowledge rank to the digital predator system. In the same way that the United States Army refused to engage in combat against Russia in 2026, using the outdated 1980-era design of the old Bradley, you also cannot, under any circumstances, accept that your communication keeps relying on obsolete tools in the battle for your market. Today, the most valuable currency on the planet is attention. And for you, entrepreneur, leader, or strategist, the greatest pain that exists is being the best at what you do and not being noticed. You have a spectacular product, but do you feel like no one knows you exist because social networks only reward dances and memes? I used to think the same way. But 15 years ago, I started in radio and television and realized that authority depends on a surgical strategy. Take the case of Chimed and Haven stores. One is a pharmaceutical company, the other is a department store, and both became media machines and tripled their sales. Your identity cannot be outsourced. You need to put yourself out there and take control of your narrative. If you want to break out of the bubble, be recognized, stop recording on your phone without a plan, and grow into a respected business. And break through that barrier. Which brings me over 50 million views per month on social media and is monetized in dollars. I created a practical immersion, shoulder to shoulder, here with Shimo, to build your authority on social media. I'm going to tell you what's wrong that's keeping you from being seen by millions of people. On August 16th, I will do a 100% in-person immersion, locked in my studio in Curitiba. I will personally guide you in building your lethal authority. But I'm strict about the numbers. You know that. There are only 10 seats. When the 10th spot is taken, the steel door closes and that's it. Click the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Use the QR code that appears on your screen to secure your spot immediately. Bulletproof your communication, break the barrier, and burst the bubble that's keeping you from being seen. Yes, Shimo, I'm tired of wasting time trying to find a good movie or a good series on Netflix, Amazon, or whatever streaming service it is. And in the end, the movie I picked turned out to be terrible. Well, I solved that problem for you. We created our channel with recommendations for shows and movies. There you'll find a complete curation. No culture war, no whining. Just choose, sit down, make some popcorn, and enjoy with your family on the weekend. Okay? Link in the description, in the pinned comment, and in the card that will appear on your screen. My friends, Hey, subscribe to the channel, turn on the notification bell, and leave a like on the video because it takes a lot of work to bring this to you with such quality. Now, shield your mind, I'm Shimo Oliveira, and I'll see you in the next video. See you then.